Mountains as Humans and Humans as Mountains, Song Landscape Paintings and Daoist Alchemical Body Charts. In the material culture of Song China, a synthesis of the human body with mountains and the natural world emerges in the paintings of monumental landscape artists, the writings and paintings of the Chinese literati, Neo-Confucian architectural developments on sacred mountains, Chan Buddhist art, and Daoist alchemical body charts. This video looks at how mountain body representations emerge specifically in the visual context of Song landscape painting and Daoist alchemical diagrams. Daoists had long understood a relationship of correspondence between the human body and the natural world. In early Daoist texts such as the Taiping Jing, for example, the human body and natural world or cosmos are often depicted as corresponding to one another. Section 41 of the Taiping Jing states, quote, "When human beings come to life, heaven's qi shines forth in all of them. Their head is round like heaven, their feet are square like earth. The four limbs resemble the four seasons, the five internal organs the five phases, while ears and eyes, mouth and nose are like the seven regents or three luminaries." Similarly, in the ancient text of the Huainanzi, which was particularly influential within early traditions of Daoism, especially to the scriptural tradition of the Tianshi movement, descriptions detailing how the human body and its internal workings resembled those of the natural world and cosmos were already present. Quote, "The roundness of the head is an image of heaven. The squareness of the feet is the pattern of earth. Heaven has four seasons, 5 phases, 9 directions, and 360 days. Human beings have 4 limbs, 5 organs, 9 orifices, and 360 joints. Heaven has wind, rain, cold, and heat. Human beings have the actions of giving, taking, joy, and anger. The gallbladder corresponds to the clouds, the lungs to the breath, the liver to the wind, the kidneys to the rain, and the spleen to the thunder." Other early texts containing similar descriptions of the body include the Chunqiu Fanlu and the Huangting Jing, the latter of which was one of the most influential texts in Taoism. Isabelle Robinet describes the Huangting Jing as, quote, "probably the earliest extant work describing the human body as animated by inner gods," end quote. The text includes visualization practices of the inner bodily organs as part of a cosmos. Rich descriptions of the body as found in these early texts influenced later developments in Taoism. The Song period marked a time during which Chinese Taoists were in the process of developing visual tools, maps, or diagrams of the body that could represent both the internal processes of human bodies as well as the relationship of these bodies and processes to the world and cosmos. These images later influenced the formation of much more extensive and well-known diagrams such as the Neijing Tu and the Xiujin Tu, both of which were created within the context of Quanzhen Daoism of the Qing period. The oldest extant alchemical representation of the body in the form of a mountain dates to the Southern Song period and is found in the Taoist canon. As suggested in its title, Map of Rise and Fall of Yin and Yang in the Human Body, the picture of the mountain acts as a representational system that corresponds to the physiological workings of the human body. Contained within the illustrated forms of the mountain, including its rocks, ledges, waters, edifices, and skies, small Chinese characters join images to become part of the landscape, providing visualization of the human body through the form of the mountain. The meanings of the characters act doubly, first as signifiers of the various alchemical principles described within the scripture itself, then, and perhaps more importantly, as didactic tools which show how the vital essences of the body circulate within, corresponding in fashion to how the waters and air circulate around a mountain. Towards the central lower portion of the picture, for example, the characters Mingmen, or gate of the vital force, rest above a stream that flows from an opening in the mountain. In Chinese medical literature, as well as within the context of internal alchemy, the term Mingmen refers also to key points of the human body, including the navel, the spleen, the space between the kidneys, or as a denotation for the right kidney. As found in such classical Taoist texts as the written by the southern official Ge Hong during the 4th century CE, The right kidney is directly associated with the great yin, or the original physical source of embryonic breathing and of life itself. The streams illustrated in the picture therefore act not only to represent an abstract gate within the body, but also to serve practitioners, aiding them in the visualization of a central and specific point of alchemical flow within the body. As in the cases of later Daoist diagrams such as the Neijing-tu and the Xiujin-tu, the Song period map of rise and fall represents a vision of the Taoist body made material, in this case in the form of a mountain with rivers and landscape. Similar to the literary imagery found in early Taoist texts, in a diagram like the map of rise and fall, Taoists depicted the human body as a microcosm that contained inner landscapes of both natural and cosmic dimensions. Taoist studies scholar Catherine Despierre maintains that the Song appears to have marked a special moment along the historical timeline in which Taoist representations of the body began to flourish in China. Quote, "The Song period clearly marks a turning point in the graphic representation of the body, as in graphic representation in general. From this time onward, visual imagery comes to play a more significant role, not only as a record of knowledge, but also as a teaching aid, a mode of transmission, a mnemonic device, a visual translation of a text, and a representation of a certain reality." During Song China, however, Taoism was not the only cultural area from which a reverence for nature and its association with the human self emerged in material representation. Northern Song scholar officials such as Su Shi and Ouyang Xiu describe natural objects as emblematic of human character and experience. Such appreciation for nature had already existed within the literary arts of Chinese culture for some time, present, for example, during the southern dynasties of the 5th and 6th centuries CE, when Yongwu poems, or poems devoted to detailed descriptions of natural world objects, flourished within the literary culture of the court. However, in addition to their representation of these symbolic unions between natural world and human character in their writings, literati of the Song period also began to represent this amalgamation in the form of ink monochrome painting. In this way, literati scholars such as Su Shi viewed paintings of objects such as bamboo, plum blossoms, or pine as embedded symbolically with human characteristics, including those of nobility and intellectual vitality. Su Shi famously extolled his friend Wen Tong's bamboo paintings, revering the well-known Northern Song painter not only because he believed the artist to have captured the essence of the bamboo on the scroll, but also because he envisioned Wen's own being or self as manifest in the form of the painted bamboo. One of Su Shi's well-known poems about Wen Tong reads, "When Yu Ke painted bamboo, he saw bamboo, not himself, nor was he simply unconscious of himself. Trance-like, he left his body. His body was transformed into bamboo, creating inexhaustible freshness. Zhuangzhou is no longer in this world, so who can understand such concentration?" Su Shi believed that Wen Tong's paintings of bamboo were, to a large extent, self-portraits. For Su, a painting of an object in nature had the capacity to become a symbolic portrait of a man. Art historian Peter Sturman describes the references to Zhuangzi in Su's poetry as related to Wen's interest in Laozhuang thought and to Wen's personal attempts at melding artist with subject through a state of detachment. In the 1090s, Su Shi painted his well-known hand scroll, Wood and Rock, which uses ink wash to depict gnarled wood alongside an eccentric rock, both representative of human character. Like his poetry about objects from the natural world, Su Shi's own painting creates an anthropomorphic vision of how nature is representative of humanity, and possibly of an intimate self-portrait of Su himself. Through the work of Su Shi and other literati, the Song and later periods thus saw the growth of a literati painting tradition. One influence in how the Northern Song literati interpreted images of nature as representative of human character had to do with their training in Confucianism and concern with an individual's development of an ethical code by which to live and relate to other humans. The plum, the orchid, the chrysanthemum, and the bamboo came to be understood within literati artistic culture as the four gentlemen, representing human values typically extolled in Confucianism. Similarly, the pine, the plum, and the bamboo symbolically comprise the three friends of winter in literati culture, and we find this symbolism in both literati writing and painting. We know, however, that the literati were also interested in Buddhism and Daoism, and that religions and philosophies intersected to a great degree during Song China. As Daoist studies scholar Farzin Baltrian Hussein has examined, Daoist beliefs, practices, and texts had an important impact on literary circles of the Song period. During the Northern Song, for example, the great literati scholar Ouyang Xiu collated a version of the HUANGTING JING, which circulated widely among the lettered classes of the time and was popular during Su Shi's own stay in the capital. In his seminal work on the life of Su Shi, Ronald Egan has also discussed how Su practiced and wrote about Taoist techniques found in Yangsheng, or nurturing life traditions derived from inner alchemical texts. Some of these techniques included embryonic breathing and the ingestion of longevity drugs, such as pills derived from cinnabar. Su also experimented with the alchemist's furnace and was interested in inner alchemical procedures. Ouyang Xiu had similarly written about Yangsheng techniques and the nurturing of one's interior body. During this same dynamic period of the Song, artists in the imperial city of Kaifeng, some of whom knew and interacted with Su Shi and other literati, worked as court painters at the Hanlin Academy. These artists developed a tradition of painting, monumental landscape, which flourished during the Northern Song. Painting ink and color onto enormous hanging scrolls, usually made of silk, artists created impressive mountain settings for imperial and aristocratic audiences. Curator and art historian Stephen Little describes the sacred space of the Taoist mountain as manifest in Chinese monumental landscape paintings of the medieval period, including such works as Seeking the Tao in the Autumn Mountains, a painting by Zhu Ran, a Buddhist monk painter in the 10th century. One of the most famous of these Song monumental landscapes is Early Spring, a painting completed in the year 1072 by Guo Si, a northern Song painter who worked under the reign of Emperor Shenzong. Guo Si enjoyed a high rank not only as an artist but also as an official, ultimately becoming the first painter awarded civil rank within the history of the Northern Song Painting Academy. Not only was he Su Shi's contemporary, but Su saw Guo's work in the Hanlin Academy and wrote poems about them. During the medieval period, literati scholars, artists, and officials had a rich culture of exchanging ideas about religion, including Taoism. It is likely that Su, Guo, and others shared ideas about Taoist texts, as well as thoughts on paintings of nature. Several years after Guo Si painted Early Spring, a record of sayings known as the Lin Chuan Gao Zhi, or Lofty Record of Forests and Streams, which detailed the artistic methods of landscape painting, was compiled and edited by Guo's son, Guo Si, in his own Hua Ji, which were his notes on Guo Si's paintings. These writings map out some of the most influential rules for Northern Song monumental landscape painting, instructing artists to paint the mountain anthropomorphically as if it were a human body. One section of the lofty record reads, quote, "Watercourses are the arteries of a mountain, grass and trees its hair, mist and haze its complexion. Therefore, with water a mountain becomes alive, with grass and trees beautiful, with mist and haze charming and elegant. Water has the mountains as its face, arbors and terraces as its eyes and eyebrows. Fishing and angling give it animation." Elsewhere, Guo continues, even mentioning a mountain's waters as its blood which circulates. Quote, "Some mountains are high, while others are low. A high mountain has its arteries low. A low mountain has its arteries higher up. Stones are the bones of heaven and earth. Bones are valuable when they are buried deep and do not appear on the surface. Water is the blood of heaven and earth. Blood is valuable when it circulates and not when it congeals." Guo does not envision the mountain as a generic human body, however. Merging natural and imperial powers, he has a particular body in mind when he thinks of the mountain, and that is the body of the emperor. Quote, "A great mountain is so stately that it becomes the master of multitudinous others arranged about it in order. It becomes the great master of the hills and slopes, forests and valleys, far and near, small and large. Its appearance is that of an emperor sitting majestically in all his glory." While we cannot assume that landscape artists of the Song period were Taoists, we do have evidence that early Taoist texts and ideas influenced not only Taoist representations of the time, but also impacted how landscape artists and literati scholars thought about the human body and the natural world. As such, we locate an interesting occurrence that took place during the Song, whereby a merging of body and landscape occurred in China's material culture across a variety of religious and artistic traditions.